Well, hello everyone, and welcome to episode number 19 of FinalBossTV. We're going about Holy Paladins tonight, because everyone needs to know how to bubble Hearth in emergencies. So I'm your host, as per usual, well, don't yell at me, Adam K, aka Bay. Welcome everybody. It is the 8th of December, and I'm actually color coordinating a little bit here. I got my green cup and my red shirt, so hopefully spread some of that's cheer around this evening. And before we get into who our guests are, we have a little story first here. My co-host, Anna Phil, you wanted to say hello to everybody and tell them a story?
Hey, there's not a story, so now you've hyped it up. This is
there's no hype?
There's really not a story. I woke up like 45 minutes ago. I was really tired, I guess. And when we were doing the pre-show, I was like, oh, I need a couple minutes. And I get in my car and I run down like 2 blocks away to the gas station and I got a big thing of coffee and came back. And and so I was just like, I knew that was going to happen at some point, that I was going to wake up late for the show. And then while we were setting up, I was going to have to like leave. And so that's the story, is that I have coffee now, and
Where's
I got
the
it
coffee?
I got it like 5 minutes ago.
Is the coffee worth it though? Is it good?
Yeah, no, the coffee was really worth it. Believe me, I wanted coffee. I was also out of beer, and I also need that. So.
Oh, that priorities.
So I picked up two things.
Awesome. So joining us tonight for our Holy Paladins is going to be from Nightmare Asylum, the #1 10-man guild in the U.S., Mr. PeachBlossom. Hello, sir. Welcome to the show.
Hello?
Oh, there you are. Okay, gotcha. I did fix your little eyes for the logo, so they look pretty good. So we're all set on that. Additionally, Hennyox from ScrubBusters here, representing from across the pond. Hello, sir.
Hello, how's it going?
It's going all right, I guess. We talked a little bit about before the show went live about how awesome your hair is tonight. So
yeah, it's pretty awesome. Not just tonight though, all the time.
Oh, all the time.
Yeah,
okay.
All the time. Yeah.
I apologize. It's just always that good. Perfect. So, and as we said, just a little background. ScrubBusters, you guys were EU 5th, correct? 25 man, just to get in that. Yep.
Yes.
And then, like I said, with Nightmare Asylum, you guys ended US 1st 10 man. So these guys know how to Holy Paladin. Hopefully. Do you know how to, Henny? Apparently you don't, Henny. Is it?
Yeah, not really. It's just flukes and yeah, pretty much.
Okay. But hello, chat room, and hello, everybody. So, I wanted to go over just some opening stuff here with you guys. And just a little disclaimer. A lot of you guys sent in some questions. There's some really good ones that I'm going to put in the after show. We have a whole lot in the show proper. And I kind of melded some of your questions you sent in into the topics we already had going. So listen for your question to come up in one of our topics. But if you had like a really interesting one, I have 2 or 3. And if you send in ones during the show on like Twitter or to the email, they'll be in the after show. So stick around for that. So just in case you don't hear your name called at the end of the show. I don't think we're going to get to the Mob and Minion inquiry. So I don't want to like just tell you it's not going to happen when we get there, just to know. But what have you guys been up to outside of the game? You guys both just farm content now. So, Henny, what have you guys been up to with farm content? Anything crazy going on in your real life? Lego structures, by chance?
No Lego structures, but aside from raiding, I've got a full-time job between 7:30 in the morning and 5 every day. Oh, wow. So, it's quite a lot to then do the progression as well, so I'm glad when it's over and I can actually get some sleep again. Yeah. And apart from that, I play some violin as my sort of second hobby, and yeah, apart from that, it's just Warcraft and work, pretty much.
I didn't know about the violin thing. I would have had you like serenade the show opening.
No. See, I left it till now, so I couldn't prepare anything, so I wouldn't have to do it on the show. So.
Oh, I see what you did there. Dang. And Peach, what about you, sir? What have you been up to with farm and everything going on right now?
Well, I've tried like getting some alts up just for fun, and then that kind of got boring pretty quickly. So just finishing school, working on like crunch time on some projects that we have going for school, and then watching football too. Real football, not soccer.
Oh. Okay.
What is the soccer you talk about?
Did you have to clarify that because we have an EU guest?
Yeah, so I've lived in Europe for quite a while actually. So when I think of football, I usually think of soccer too.
Oh, okay. Very awesome. Are you leveling up other healer alts or like not right now?
Yeah, I have 2 healer alts, and then I'm working on a warlock, but I ran out of like the XP potions, and so he's kind of just been stuck there.
Oh,
so I get some more.
Yeah, I don't even know. Have any of you else like leveled? I don't get to play the game enough to actually do that. But are the new XP potions with like heirlooms just like really, really silly for leveling speed?
Heirlooms were already really, really silly.
Well,
I'm not sure how it could get any sillier.
Yeah. Well, it's the potion's 100 XP, right? 100%?
300%.
300%. Well, okay. I'm totally out of the loop here. Wow. That's pretty ridiculous.
I meant to get a second account and do recruiter friend with myself to level 2 more characters just on my own, like dual box it, but I've just been too lazy to do that. And I hear it's just the leveling is so fast that it's stupid. Like you spend more time trying to figure out where to go next than you do actually completing quests, because you're like, well, I'm over leveled for this zone now. I guess I'll move along and find the next breadcrumb. So
yeah.
I'd like to do that because I'd like a warlock, since everyone wants a warlock, and I'd also like a warrior, but not yet.
That is a good point, because that's what Peach just said. He's leveling a warlock.
Mm-hmm.
But,
everyone's leveling a warlock.
Everyone's leveling a warlock. Well, it is. I mean, I said this before, but Ghostcrawler confirmed on Twitter that it was a typo. It's Warlocks of Draenor.
Yeah, Warlocks of Draenor.
Not Warlords of Draenor. So, just to clear the air on that, that's fine. So to jump right into the beginning of this, I wanted to go a little bit into the past about where Holy Paladins got started. And because at first in this game, they were sort of almost D&D-esque, where we're much like a support class, kind of like a melee, I'll throw heals now and then and judge and I'll buff you, and the good old days of Whispercast. So before World of Warcraft, what I think you had the MMOs that you guys healed in before this? Henny, did you have anything beforehand?
Yeah, not really. No, this is first sort of MMO. I think I played a little bit of I can't remember the game, but Diablo 2.
Oh.
Yeah, I played a little bit in that, and yeah, but apart from that, like Warcraft's only MMO really.
Yeah, and the same thing for you, Peach, or did you have a different background before you started playing WoW?
Yeah, I played Rift, and I played a Paladin in Rift, which was actually, it's not a healer class at all, it's kind of a tank, just a tank. And then I played a Cleric in Rift as well, which is pretty similar to like a WoW Holy Paladin. So I've been healing before WoW too.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Because it's always interesting to see where healers come from. One of our questions in the after show kind of digs into that a little deeper, but I always think it's interesting because like healing and tanking is such a different aspect than just like hitting things with our weapons and throwing spells. So, and then what brought you, I guess, to Holy Paladin? Anything that stood out for you? What was your story behind going Holy Paladin? We'll go with Henny, yeah?
Yeah, basically, I re-rolled it to ensure a raid spot just in case my old main of a Shaman wasn't good enough to be in the raid, basically, and bench isn't fun. So, yeah, I basically did it for that. And I think it's a really strong class compared to the others, and like, the utility it brings to the raid is really strong.
When did you reroll again?
Yeah, so at the end of Dragon Soul, just in time for MOP, basically.
Okay. And what about you, Peach? Do you have a similar story, or have you been playing Holy Paladin for a lot longer?
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Back in Wrath, I played a DK tank. And I just remembered Holy Paladins being pretty good back then. So I started playing WoW again at the end of Dragon Soul, so I started off with a Holy Paladin then. I wanted to heal, and I just remembered Holy Paladins as being pretty good back in Wrath, and it looked like they're still pretty good in Dragon Soul, so I started off with that.
Just a little good. Just a little.
A little
so
good.
I've been playing a Paladin longer than either one of you guys has then.
Yeah.
That's correct, yeah.
That's awesome. I've been playing my Paladin since I started playing this game. I've always liked the Holy Defender and plate armor kind of archetype, but I've never healed. So it's interesting to hear what drew you guys to the class.
Because you've only tanked and DPS, right, Anna?
Yes,
You never.
I've only tanked and DPS'd. I like them both. I have healed a little bit on alts.
Yeah.
I healed on my priest and I healed on my shaman leveling up, and that's just because I like hybrids, and so I like doing many different things. But healing is definitely not the type of gameplay that I enjoy most. I like tanking and I like DPS both. But the paladin is my class. I love that we're doing a show about paladins because I'm a big like fan of. Some people are really attached to their class and some people are really attached to their role, and I'm more attached to my class than I am anything else. Paladins are just that they're the class that I always want to play in any MMO. It's interesting that you said that you played one in Rift, because I also played a bit of Rift, and I went down the paladin tree as well. So, but that was a very different game than WoW. In a very different manner.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely a lot of similarities, but like the whole archetype of the game and how their classes were was definitely different. But now I'm interested now. I gotta pick your brain just a second here, Anna. Why have you never actually healed on your paladin if you love it so much? Just
because I'm not really a healer type of person. I initially tanked because I like control, and when we were going through dungeons, I wanted to set the pace. And I wanted to sort of figure out where the mobs would be and stuff. That's generally why a lot of people tank, I think, is because they want to control the pace of the dungeon and really lead that. And then I got tired of that after a while, and especially in a raid setting, I realized that I kind of liked the constant optimization of DPS. Like always, I found that I was always challenging myself more to outdo the numbers that I was putting out and really perfect what I was doing.
Yeah.
And it was less stressful, honestly, and it was stressful in a very different way. I found DPS harder than tanking in some ways, and that was a big challenge to me, because as tank you can stand in fire and get away with a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
In some cases it's much more difficult. I had to tank some of the fights that we did last week. One of our main tanks was out, and I was like, oh cool, I get to tank farm. And that was like stressful in a completely stressful in a completely different way.
Yeah.
That's sort of a tangent. So I find it very interesting to hear what draws people to healing, because that's, I heal because it's cool to do something new, but that's like pulling up a different game on my phone. Like that's not really, that's just a new experience for me. It's really not what I want to do in an MMO. So I'd love to hear more. I think we're going to talk about this later in the show, what really y'all enjoy so much about healing in a raid day after day, because lots of people really love it, and it's just not something I understand.
And it's weird too, because I started out as a resto druid and then went boomkin and then went right to enhancement shaman. So I played all three, except I didn't ever tank really, and that was like I never went back to really healing. So, and you guys have been doing it for now so long, so, and that goes back like back in the day. Since you both never played old school Holy Paladins, for those of you that didn't, like in vanilla.
Oh, really old school Holy Paladin.
Really old school Holy Paladin. You had to go protection to get kings, right? That was the 31 point talent to get kings. And all blessings last like 5 minutes, I think, or they 2 at first and they buffed them to 5. So they were really like a support class. And if you ever had anyone in your raid or your group, it was a paladin. It was usually a healer. They would never really do anything else. So the evolution to becoming a real healer, though, say for we got in Burning Crusade, Paladins we got on both sides. We got Blood Elves, and then Wrath, we got raid wide auras. Ooh, and then Cataclysm brought Holy Power, and that's when you two guys started. So when you jumped into healing on a Holy Paladin, how did Holy Power feel for you guys, having like 3 combo points as a healer? Peach, like what did you feel going into that? How did Holy Power work for Holy Paladins?
I'm not really a fan of having like a Holy Power counter type resource for healing, because it basically you're doing like less than the amount of healing you need to be doing for a little bit until you build up Holy Power, and then you have a really quick burst, and then you're back to building again. And mostly in WoW, there's either like steady healing that needs to, like steady AoE damage that needs to be healed up, or there's a really sudden burst. And with the Holy Power, you don't really have the tools to fight either of those. If it's a steady AoE damage, then you have that a kind of steady buildup of your healing over time, so that's okay. But when there's a really short burst, like the Whirling Corruption on Garrosh, like you use your Holy Power and it's gone in pretty much one global cooldown, maybe two, and then you don't really have anything to do. And the actual healing that your holy power finishes do, it's not that much. So
yeah, it doesn't feel like
feels
it's
kind of weak.
Yeah, it doesn't feel worth it, like enough punch, that it's almost just like part of the class, but you get to build up to it and you do it, it's like, oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's not that much difference between the healing your builders do and the healing your finishers do.
Yeah.
And if they change it, so your finishers are doing like a lot more healing and your builders are doing a really low healing, then it becomes either worthless because you're not doing enough healing building, or it becomes overpowered because you're doing pretty much no healing but building up holy power for when you actually need healing, and then you just have massive burst.
See, that's so funny to hear you compare the way holy power works for you, because I've always wondered how it feels as a healer, to the way that I feel like it works for the other two specs. Some of the things that you're discussing as weaknesses that make complete sense from a healing perspective, or just weirdnesses with the way that your class plays, these are some of the reasons why I love Holy Power. I was super pumped when Holy Power was added to the Paladin class. I'm one of those people who, that was actually the first time that I decided that I wanted to play Retribution, because Retribution sucked before Holy Power. It was awful. And then when Holy Power came in, this whole like build and then spend and then build and then spend thing was really what drew me to Retribution as a DPS class. But I can completely understand how that feels very different from a healer perspective, because you have to be reactive to the way that things happen in the raid. You have you have to react to damage. It's like you said, there's AE damage and there's burst damage. Whereas for me, I'm focusing on damage output, and I like being able to have that burst, that controlled burst. But it's just different. So it's fun.
And then Henny, what about you with Holy Power?
I don't know.
Like your introduction to Holy Paladin.
Yeah, I prefer the sort of combo point way of healing compared to the other classes, just because you need to kind of think, should I use this? Should I use 3 Holy Power on this person, or should I wait a little bit? Do I know that a big spike damage is incoming? But I'd like it a lot better if we could use more than just the one Holy Power finisher than what we have to use right now, because Light of Dawn really just doesn't cut it. So yeah, but yeah, if we had more options, it'd be a lot better.
But you, like, initially when you got attacked with and you went to Holy Paladin, you weren't like dismayed by it or thought it was like a weird mechanic because you just went into it for Master Shaman basically?
Yeah, no, I found it okay to sort of get used to. Yeah, it's just like Peach said, it's just the building, and then you spend it, and then you just go back to building and just constantly doing that for however long the fight is, basically.
Yeah.
Now, how does it feel to have 2 resources? Because I feel like I only have 1 resource, because mana is non-existent for Prots and Rets. It's basically like we might as well not have a bar, unless we are casting Flash of Lights. But I know that you have to worry about both Holy Power and mana. Does that feel like it's do you think it's cooler to have 2 resources? You never noticed it? Do you have an opinion on that?
I think worrying about mana is more of a 10-man thing, because you don't have as many mana gaining cooldowns in the raid. But for 25-man, it's a lot easier to sort of manage your mana, because you know that you can get Divine Hymns, and you're going to most likely have a Resto Shaman in the raid, so it's not really that much of an issue. And even sitting down and potting for like 10 seconds isn't that much of an issue in 25-man, because you know you've got 4 or 5 other people to pick up the slack while you do that. But in 10-man, I guess you're going to either leave it with just one person hitting for a certain time, and if you do that, then that could be a wipe right there.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it too, as you compared it to. And then Peach, what do you say about that thing? Is that a lot more to worry about in 10-man for you? The mana.
Yeah, personally, I like stacking enough spirit until it kind of reaches the point where you don't have to worry about mana that much.
Oh.
And we've had either a disc priest or a Resto Shaman in the raid all the time, so we've been able to get at least one of those mana cooldowns, which is nice.
Okay. So, but is the impact of like one of those mana cooldowns really big deal in 10-man? Because I know in 25 you'll have like 4 or 5 of them or whatever, but like I usually just have like one in 10-man. Is it still really powerful?
Yeah, it's pretty powerful, especially the Resto Shaman one, the Mana Tide.
Yeah.
You can really tell, like, when it's been dropped, you go pretty much back to full.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. It's cool, too. When we put the show together, I wanted to make sure, from a healing standpoint, Holy Paladin, I felt, really had good dynamics to talk about for 10 and 25 man. So these guys are definitely lay out a lot of the law here about the two. But then in Mists, you lost your relics, right? Relics are gone. Big, I lost my relic too.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Those needed to leave.
It's so goofy. And then your seals turned into stances. Auras were removed. They're like cooldowns now, kind of more like totems. And then you got 5 holy power. So, good changes overall? Did you miss your auras? Or, like, how did you feel with the Mists of Pandaria changes, since you actually had some experience with the Cataclysm version of Holy Paladin?
I don't think stances are that useful for us.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit different for Ret, where you can change between the two. I don't know if you do. I'm not really read up too much on that, but in Holy you just sit in Insight pretty much, and that's it. You don't really have to change between two. So I don't know if that's a good thing to have. Because you just leave it switched on and that's it. And with the aura mastery sort of thing, now it's just become a cooldown, so
yeah,
it's just straightforward, press the button and that's it.
Yep.
Honestly, my least favorite part about that change was that they changed the name from Aura Mastery to Devo Aura.
Yeah, right.
Devo Aura used to be the tank one that increased your armor.
Yep.
And I was kind of bummed out that they changed Aura Mastery to Devo Aura, because Devo Aura was the specific one, and Aura Mastery was the talent that made whatever aura you had more powerful. Yeah. And it's just a cooler name. I mean, honestly, it's a bummer.
No, we still call it Aura Mastery anyway.
You call it AM?
Yeah.
Oh, we call it Devo. I wish we called it AM.
Oh.
I'll have to make that change.
Make the change.
Yeah, and you mentioned Ret, so I might as well chime in. I guess I'm probably going to have more to say on this show than some of the rest.
It's okay.
Before the Seal of Righteousness buff, we never, ever, ever swapped seals. We were just in Seal of Truth all day, every day.
Yeah.
Seal of Righteousness was buffed at some point. I don't remember what patch it was, but it was buffed at some point to make it worthwhile on 4 targets. And when it became worthwhile on 4 targets, then we started switching to it on trash, and in very specific encounters. But there are very few encounters where you're actually going to use Seal of Righteousness. You also have to be DPSing those targets for at least 30 seconds to make it worthwhile to lose the GCT to switch, which makes it a little bit more boring. Yeah. So I don't really have a huge problem with it, because when I'm tanking, I use Seal of Insight, and when I'm DPSing, I use Seal of Truth, and I guess there are situations where I'd use Seal of Righteous in a boss fight for fighting more than 4 targets for a while, or 4 targets or more for a while. But so I don't have a huge problem with it. But seals are they're that paladin thing. It's like a stance. We've all got one. Lots of classes have stances, and a lot of times those stances are tied to what spec you're in. And the interesting thing is that you pick the stance for the spec, and there's really nothing more complicated than that. I mean, that's just kind of how it works. You could use the same argument to call stances boring for any class, honestly. Well, and there are a lot of them.
That's what I was about to bring up, too, is that if you could actually have reason as a retribution to go back and forth between 2, and there is an argument, you can do 2 different stances as a protection paladin as well, but why Holy only has 1? You stay in 1 the whole time and you don't even think about it. That's kind of...
No, protection really only has 1 as well. You don't want to get out of Seal of Insight.
No, you don't want to? What if you want to do the damages?
They nerfed Seal of Truth so that it does a ridiculous less amount of damage for prot. Otherwise, you'd see a lot more prots using Seal of Truth.
Unfortunately.
I mean, I guess there are probably some prots that don't use Seal of Insight because they literally just don't take that much damage. But I don't think that's very common.
Yeah.
Of all of the sacrifices that prot paladins make for DPS, the seal is not generally one of them.
Huh.
So, I could be wrong. It's been. I mean, I only prot off tank. When I absolutely have to. So someone in chat can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember seeing it. I don't remember seeing anyone getting out of Seal of Insight anytime lately.
Yeah. I don't know. That's just it strikes me as so awkward that you have no other options for Holy. Do you guys care? I guess that's the really point. Did the Holy Paladins mind this versus the other ones? Henny, Peach, do you guys... Looks like no?
I think it might be... worthwhile for them to sort of make a change. I don't know, something like how the priests used to have was it chakra or something like that? You know, where you change between if you want to do single target healing or then change to the other one if you want to do sort of more of an AoE heal, like a cleave or something like that, and then insight for mana, and then it reduces your heal a little bit. But I don't know, they probably just make it more complicated if they do something like that. So I'm not sure what's going to go on with them.
Yeah, it might be nice, like having the seals be like spec specific. But I think it's more likely that they'll just they would get rid of them for warlords. Like just give each role like their seal as a passive.
Yeah.
No, I like switching it though. You guys are such bummers. Okay, what class? Okay, name chat help me out with this. What class actually has stances that you commonly switch between in combat? And I guess I'm coming at this from somebody who plays 2 specs in raid every week. So I switch when I switch my spec, and that's part of being a paladin is that I switch stances when I switch my spec. And I obviously switch Righteous Fury too. I mean, you could say the same thing about that. What class actually changes stances a lot in combat? Okay, warrior and druid is what I'm seeing out of chat. They really do switch stances in combat commonly. Huh. Okay.
I mean, I know that warrior.
But I know monks don't.
Yeah.
For one example, they have the same kind of deal. In your favorite MMO, Star Wars, you don't switch stances in your.
Well, you can't. Yeah, it's kind of like what Peach said about being a passive in Star Wars: Old Republic. Drink. If you tank, there are different stances you can play as as an assassin, as a consular. So, but if you don't stay in the combat stance, you don't actually get some of your tanking abilities. They just don't work. Right. So that's like sort of
similar to how
deal.
warriors work, I think. In WoW.
Well, there's a couple limitations now on warrior stances, I believe, right? That if you go into a certain stance, you can't use certain abilities. But I think they removed a lot of that. But they put benefits on going from like Berserker to battle and back, I guess, as a DPS warrior. So, and then I guess Prot does Prot still have to stand switch for execute or no? They just execute in Prot now, don't they?
Maybe chat knows. Maybe somebody in chat knows.
Yeah, I don't think they need to.
You can use everything in every stance. So what is going?
Yeah,
chat
says no.
There's a little bit of delay on chat, so we're reading it. There's a little bit of delay. Calm down. It's okay. Jack's mad. But yeah. So okay. Huh.
Yeah, I guess my point is that stances are just one of those things that exist in an MMO, and of all of the really boring things that you could take out, I mean, there are a lot of other much more boring things, I feel like, than stances. And the fact that you don't switch them all of the time for every spec doesn't necessarily make them that boring. I mean, and again, I say that as somebody who's biased because I do switch my stance. I switch my stance when I switch my spec, and I switch my stance on trash to top the meters. But that's really that's really the only thing that, I just don't think they're that boring. I don't think that's not what I would pick to remove. I think it really defines in some ways how a paladin feels, and that's because I've played a paladin for a long time. I remember I didn't play a paladin in like vanilla and BC, but I remember auras and I remember blessings and I remember all of that stuff. Goodness. And it's just very much that's what a paladin is. I feel like I feel like it defines some of the feeling of the class to me.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's more of like a leftover thing from the old talent trees where you didn't really have, you choose your spec and blah, 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 and then you pick your talents. So I think it might be just something left over from that, but yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Nothing? We're good?
Yeah. Sorry, Anna ran. I didn't rant last week, so clearly I had to get some rant. I had to get some rant time in this week. This is my favorite class, so you're going to hear a lot out of me. Sorry, guys.
Very true. Yeah. The next 2 Paladin episodes that come around too are probably going to have plenty of this. So it's okay. It's all right. It's passion. It's passion.
I wasn't at our pre-show meeting either because I had a really busy weekend. So these poor guys are like meeting me for the first time, and our guests are probably like, "Who is this person?" Anyway, moving right along.
Yeah. But I guess that's the last thing I wanted to make sure that. So nothing else happened in MoP that you. Was there any bad changes in Mists of Pandaria for Holy Paladins? Like, what did you guys feel? Even in like recent patches, did anything happen that's been like, ugh, why'd they do this? Anything that's popped up, Peach? Henny? No.
Well, they kind of nerfed mastery.
Just a little bit.
I've sort of deleted that from my memories.
Oh, okay. So what? So what did they do? What did they do with mastery then? Peach, what happened?
They lowered the amount it scales by, so you don't get as much for the same amount of rating, and then Eternal Flame the hot portion of it won't proc the Illuminated Healing Mastery buff anymore, so you can't like keep building a shield on everyone in the raid at the same time, just by putting up Eternal Flame on everyone.
Now your mastery is your absorb healing, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Illuminated healing.
Yeah.
Absorbs, everyone's favorite topic whenever we talk about healers.
Where's Affinity when you need him? Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Yeah. But so was that a huge hit for you guys then, the nerf of the mastery? Does it feel okay now? At the time, it probably was a big deal, but now have you with the gear as it is now, is it still like a bad? Do you even? We'll get into that stat stuff later, but just that mastery nerf, was it a little too strong? You think?
Yeah, it was quite a big nerf, I think. But something had to be done about it. I'm saying it's justified, but it was a big nerf. It was silly the amount of like absorbs you could get from just like blanketing the raid. But yeah, they ruined our fun.
They ruined your fun. So I guess what was the strategy you used to use? You used to Eternal Flame lots of people, and as the Eternal Flame ticked, it gave him a shield as well, right?
Yeah. So you could put an Eternal Flame on, say, 3 people.
Sure.
Like 3 separate ones, and then if 2 of the people didn't take damage for 15 seconds or didn't take away the shield, it would keep adding to the shield constantly until they took damage. So you could just like keep stacking it up until it reached its cap, even if they took no damage, or you don't heal them for the duration of the Eternal Flame, which is like 30 seconds. So yeah.
Wow. But now, do the shields like just pop all the time now? They don't stay as...
No, they still stay, but you actually have to cast a heal on them for it to proc again. Like the initial Word of Glory from Eternal Flame still procs it, but not the tick, and they remove the ticking aspect of it.
Dang. So okay.
So I don't know if we went into this, but how did you guys feel about the change from 3 Holy Power to 5? Was it a good one? I mean, did it make a really big difference to the way that you play?
I guess you can just keep building, even once say you've got more for a big spike. But, I mean, really, once it goes over 3, it's fine. It's not really a massive benefit from having 2 more. Well, I suppose it is, but it just means you don't have to use that combo, the finisher, as quickly as you were going to.
Okay.
Because I know for prod, it felt really different for me in both of my other specs, because at least with red, it changed the rotation, but it also allowed me to build Holy Power to potentially fire off 2 TVs in a very short amount of time. And with prod, it's even more important, because then when you build up Holy Power to 5 instead of just having it at 3, I mean, that had to happen, because then you could bank Holy Power to do 2 Shield of Righteousnesses in a very short amount of time.
Yep.
So I was wondering if that connected to the way that you guys healed. But I guess you said earlier that your builders and your finishers don't really heal for a very different amount, so perhaps there's not as much of a difference then in that feeling of building up.
I know Peach had something. What are you going to say, Peach?
It's a nice change, but it doesn't really change the way you heal.
Okay.
Huh.
Yeah.
Again, back to the whole point of that, I guess Anna feels that there's a lot of difference with the Holy Power stuff with you guys, and then Holy doesn't really feel the same. That's interesting.
Well, I guess it's different when it depends on what you do with those combo points. And these guys were talking earlier about how they felt about those finishers that they have that utilize their Holy points. In my specs, the finishers that I have that use my Holy points are very meaningful spells that I cast. So I care a lot about when I can cast them, how often I can cast them, whether I can cast 2 in a row, and timing when I cast them. And because of that, having the ability to bank 5 Holy Power is an incredibly good change. But that it just really depends on what those finishers are, and whether you care more about them than about the other spells that you cast, and whether they do anything that is specifically different than the other spells that you cast. So.
Yeah, I mean, in certain types of damage, I think it was Megara. In the tip before, in the massive damage phase, sometimes I wouldn't even use it, and I'd just keep using my builders, because it's just a more efficient way of healing, really, than using a global cooldown and getting a hot on one person. You can just cast another Holy Radiance.
Now, would you like to see some, almost like, if you keep building Holy Power past your max, you would get some benefit from that or something? Because it seems like only Holy would ever have that situation. But right now, you just said that sometimes you just wouldn't even use your Holy Power.
I think more of the issue is that you can only really use one that's going to be really, really effective, which is Eternal Flame or World of Glory. But the Light of Dawn, just because the numbers sort of are not really worth it. If they had it the old Light of Dawn, where it was like a ticking, it would be much better. But I mean, you could send off a Light of Dawn now, and it just all overhill because the raid is top rather than it adding to a hot to the raid. But
yeah,
I mean that's the change they wanted to make. So
that's really interesting.
It sounds too like we'll get into that in a little bit here as well. But the overhealing issue, I guess, that you guys with Holy Paladins is that there's just so much else out there, especially like the absorb meta currently, that you guys just can't find a whole lot of leeway to be really effective because you have just lots of overhealing, right? So you just deal with all the time.
I mean, we can sort of get into that absorb, but we have to like fully rejam, and personally, I don't think that's good for progress, especially. Yeah. But I mean, farm probably that is the way to go. But yeah.
That's so interesting. I don't know that each following about all these different classes like from the internal way because I don't know tons about everything else outside of Shaman, so that's crazy. But anything else on this last little bit about Holy Power and stuff, Peach? Or are we good to move on? Are you all set?
I think we covered everything.
Okay, so I wanted to go into every time we do a class episode, just because not everyone is watching and might know about how the class works. I want to do like a little basic breakdown up to current, basically from 5.0 until now, on how a Holy Paladin handles stuff. So we'll go with single target first, and then both of you guys can really answer from a 10-man or 25-man perspective. So I'll go with Peach first. What do you guys do? How do you handle a single target, or what do you consider a single target like healing encounter for 10-man? And what do you do in a 10-man situation that you can tackle that with your toolbox?
On 10-man, the only fight where the single target tank damage is really noticeable is Garrosh. In between the corruptions, the tanks tend to take a lot of damage.
Yeah.
So you usually just cast Divine Light on them in Holy Shit when it comes up. If that's just general, and then if they take a really big hit and they're low, just replace that with Flash of Light. And then the other fight that they sometimes take a lot of single target damage on is Black Fuse when he's enraged after they kill a weapon, and then just try and have the Infusion of Light proc up and just get a quick Divine Light on them.
Sure.
Or otherwise, Flash of Light, and then of course keep an Eternal Flame on them.
So nothing really in 10-man feels, only the 2 encounters you said feel very single target oriented, I guess, because you kind of, you only 2 heal like everything in 10-man, or you ever 3 healing anything?
We 3 heal Theck.
3 heal Theck, okay. And that is just all types of AoE craziness, so.
Yes.
All
and
right.
the other things with the Paladin tank with their set bonus and Vengeance and Bastion of Light, They heal themselves for pretty much anything with Eternal Flame.
And just for 10-man, though, what about for 25-man? Henny, what do you guys tackle with? How do you deal with everything we had this tier?
I mean, generally, tank healing specifically, Beacon takes care of a lot of it unless I'm being shouted at to heal the tanks, and then I'll actually switch over. But I mean, there's so many healers in 25-man, and you've got the Resto Druids proccing mushrooms in melee. Stuff like that just seems to take care of it, really. Generally, it's only when something goes wrong that we need to spam Divine Light and Flash of Light on a tank, really. But I mean, apart from that, it's fairly straightforward for a single target. Just keep those Eternal Flames rolling.
The bacon of light. Do you have to feel like you in 10-man? I'm sure that Peach feels like it's more or less an ebb and flow between him and his buddy healer. But in 25, are you almost fighting to heal people?
Kind of. I mean, sometimes it does feel like that. Like,
yeah.
People looking at these meters and wondering why you're so low. It's just like, well, you could have a try in 25-man where people are just hitting them like slightly faster than you, and you have nothing to show for it. Or a priest, especially in progress, there's just like nothing to heal, really.
Yeah.
But I mean, you just have to, just in case. I mean, I guess that's where just to touch on that holy power thing comes back. When you do bank 5, at least you've got some sort of backup if something does go wrong. But I mean, it's fairly like plain sailing in progress, really, unless someone's done something terrible.
Something terrible.
Yeah.
And how often does that happen?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I think in other top... Okay, in ScrubBusters.
Knowing that Raid is watching.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
Quite often. Quite often it's going wrong.
That's consistent with what Lum told us last week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Don't answer that. Oh, you already did. That's terrible. Are there a lot of... For 10-man, at least for the balancing it is right now, Peach, are there a lot of, like, you know, oh my god moments all of a sudden in 10-man? Or is stuff really kind of controlled for healing from a standpoint for 10-man? Like, do you feel like rushed or like, oh my gosh? Or are you always just kind of like on top of it?
It's pretty cold. For the most part in 10-man, the healing is easy. And in situations they sometimes will rush like on Theck. Because there's like if someone gets interrupted, that's kind of a big deal. But we have like our cooldown station set up, and then like if something goes wrong, it's not usually like it's going wrong. I'll use a cooldown or something and fix it. It's like wrong, someone's dead. It's a wipe.
Oh wow!
It's pretty much either everything's going fine or it is death. And that's the other fight that could kind of be a problem is Gash with the Whirling Corruption, but you just have like, okay, who's using a cooldown, who's using off-spec cooldown, you know, like Healing Tide or AM, whatever it is, and then you use that, and it's like people get low, but they aren't going to die. It's the skin didn't have a crash.
So there's not a lot of... I know the mentality from 10-man is that point that once you lose like 1 or 2 people, it's pretty much over. So... Because you can kind of recover from that in 25. You can lose, you know, like Hyperia and 7 other people, and you're okay, right?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, so you can muscle through it, but in 10-man,
DPS, not you can't lose obviously like 2 tanks and like 3 healers. You're pretty much gonna wipe, but
yeah, you can lose the DPS, but even like losing a healer on like a 5 healed fight, you're still okay. But,
yeah, for the most part. Depends on how... I mean, if it's within like the first 2 minutes, then you might as well just wipe it anyway because... Yeah, but I mean, at the end, you can probably get through it.
Okay. That's...
Especially now, though. Probably not on progress. You probably need everyone alive still, but... Like for a kill, for example, but... On progress, I mean, people sort of outgear it so heavily in 25-man that you can just deal with it.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, the big difference between the balance issues we have. It's a small window into what the balance issues between 10 and 25 man are right now. And that's a good way to illustrate that with the healing side of things, because I know we can talk about it briefly before we move on to the next little topic, but I know it was touched on that we might only be using like 3 healers in Mythic. 3, possibly 4. And there are more healing classes than that. So... Do you guys hope Holy Paladins get some love or something gets fixed for you guys for Mythic? Or are you guys okay with Holy Paladins as they are right now? I think you're going to go okay with the change.
I think with the utility they've got right now, I mean, it all depends on with this Mythic 20-man thing.
Yeah.
If it's worth bringing a rep, for example, then you can probably drop a Holy Paladin. But then you also... lose the beacon and the sort of like forget about the tank healing. So I know that if we've done a farm fight with no paladins, like the other healers find it a little bit hard to keep up the tank, or I've got so used to it that the paladins sort of deal with it that they don't do it and don't change the way they play. So it all depends on, is it worth bringing a ret is Prop Paladin better than the other tanks? Because then you won't need to bring the Holy Paladin for that utility because you've already got them in the raid, and then you'll just bring the best healers basically. But
Yeah,
I mean, like right now, I think like Holy Paladins would be fine getting a spot in there.
In Mythic? Okay.
Yes.
That's good. Quell some of that, like, you know, the I can quote Convert to Raid on this. They have a little video. It's Calm the F Down. They have a little hotline video to everyone's freaking out about Warlords, but
yeah.
Well,
it'll be okay.
what I think. You know what I think is going to happen at Warlords,
gosh.
but I've said it every week.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Want to say it again?
Chat knows where I'm going with this. Chat, what do I think is going to happen in Warlords?
You can say it again if you like, but
No, almost. Shark Gaston's almost got it.
Almost got it.
Of course, because I mean, what's going to happen to go from 25 to 20 is you're just going to bench all the melee. So there go the red Paladins. In all seriousness, I feel like the way that Paladins work in raids is that you always want X Paladins. And then it just depends. It just depends on which specs are strongest. But you're gonna have X Paladins in the raid or on your roster, as the case may be. And Prot has traditionally been a very strong tanking spec, and Holy has traditionally been a very strong healing spec. And Ret's been kind of up and down. So I mean, we'll see. I don't think that I would be too worried about the raid spot of a Ret. I mean, of a Holy Paladin or a Prot Paladin, but.
Yep.
I am neither of those specs, so so I guess we'll see.
Yeah.
But that's really the way that Paladins work, and I feel like it's just because of the specific kind of class that we are, because we bring so much utility to the raid that a lot of the time you're doing the math. How many bops do you need to get through this fight? How many Diva Auras do you need to get through this fight? How many Hand of Sacks do you need to get through this fight? There have been fights where you've literally counted how many of those things you've needed, and then put the number of Paladins into the raid that allow you to meet those numbers. And obviously there are other classes that can do that, but I feel like with Paladins, it's just so much more commonly that's the math that's going into how many of us there are.
Yeah.
And how many things can be cheated with bubble, all of that stuff. So.
Yep. So not to worry. I know there's lots of people that are freaking out, especially the healer side of things, because from them going from I guess from 10 to Mythic, you can add 1 or 2, but then from 25, you're basically losing 1 or 2. So I know people are like, freaking out. But I think it'll be a lot better than people are speculating. But I think we're good on that. Are there any things to touch on for any specific for AoE healing for you guys? Between 10 and 25, man? Henny?
Well, it's basically the same with such limited options for the finisher. I mean, it's still going to be Eternal Flame. And those heavy AoE fights, you're mostly stacked up anyway, so Holy Radiance does sort of good. And Light's Hammer and stuff like that. But, I mean, yeah, it's again another one of those things where, depending on how many Disc Priests you have in the raid and Rest Druids and stuff like that, mostly it's going to be sorted. But yeah, that AoE damage, it depends on what sort of damage it is as well. See if your AM can reduce some of it really helps. So Paladins are good for that.
Yeah. And then Peach, what about you? AoE healing and 10-man?
Yeah, it's the same thing pretty much as Holy Radiance. The group is usually you have a group and then Eternal Flame on people.
Yeah. Nothing else crazy. I guess we have a topic later on. We're going to go with who the best sidekicks are for you guys to heal with in your formats, and it really, I guess, a lot more matters for 10-man. But I'm going to take a minute here and move us right along and tell everybody about who is helping behind the scenes in some great communities that help FinalBossTV do what we do and help spread awesome content. And then something special after this. So, if you haven't already, and if you do want, those Alterac Brew Pups and Enchanted Fey Dragon pets. That's a mount. It's over here. Manaflask.com is doing a crazy Advent giveaway right now. You go on this little crazy awesome, look at the little Santa hat. But they are doing a giveaway event that lasts for this week, where you can win the little Alterac pet and the awesome, crazy, color-changing Fey Dragon. So you guys should go check out manaflask.com, check out their giveaway, and all their other content. They also had, you saw here first, they had an interview with Vodka coming back for Mythic. So if you guys had any friends at Vodka or wanted to check out what they say about coming back in Warlords, there is definitely an awesome interview for them down there. Oh, here we are. But great columns, super good write-ups, lots of great content on manaflash.com. You can go check them out. And we're talking about Paladins, so might as well do it. Theck is over here at sacredduty.net. It is everything you need to know about Protection Paladins. It's an awesome blog. Got so much. If you guys like weak auras, and not only for just Paladins, oh my goodness, weak auras. All these weak auras, though. Tons and tons of awesome stuff. Tons of things found in his paste bin account for all the prop Paladin stuff. And then he's got all his reference documents for mitigation and theory crafting for prop Paladins. So, if you need to learn something else about Paladins, you can go over to sacredduty.net, read up on all the math by Theck, and super great stuff. Additionally, if you are a healer, but also play my class, totemspot.com is a huge, great forum that has guides, write-ups, and they keep up to date with all the things going on with every spec of I almost said Paladin. Too much Paladin with Shamans right now. Elemental Enhancement Restoration. So we're talking about Holy Paladins right now, but if you need to learn how to heal with all the water and the elements, you can go over and check out Totem Spot. That's where you want to go. So, without further ado, I told you guys there was a special... Where is it? There it is. There's a special announcement today. Oh boy, I am excited about this. So, a little background story. The Fire Lord, we've been defeated twice. We've beaten him twice before, right? And he dropped his hammer last time we beat him in the Firelands. And so we've kind of went in and captured him. The crew, Final Boss crew and I have kind of captured Ragnaros, and we've kind of made him our little mascot guy, right? But he's a little underpowered right now, so he was a little embarrassed to actually be captured on camera to make this little announcement for you guys. So he kind of ad-libbed it, and I'll let him talk to you. I'll let him tell you the story. It's okay.
Greetings, mortals. I have returned to present you a challenge. The December donation drive is your chance to be part of the expansion, development, and gearing of Final Boss TV. To give you some incentive, avoiding the flames of sulfur! I'll also be dropping some loot. A donation of at least $5 will get you mentioned in an official thank you video and immortalized on my Fire Lord's favorite Hall of Fame webpage. $15 will grant you everything previously mentioned, plus 4 of our custom Final Boss TV silicone wristbands. Donating $25 will have you immortalized and thanked with 6 wristbands. And have you seen the Final Boss t-shirts? But don't think you can afford one? We will be granting you a raffle ticket for a t-shirt giveaway. Multiple $25 donations will be accepted for additional loot and raffle tickets. And finally, our $100 tier will get you everything mentioned previously, minus a raffle ticket. Why? Because you just guaranteed yourself a custom crew t-shirt, allowing you to show off your Final Boss love all over the world of Warcraft. What? Oh, I had to. Of course, if you're feeling especially generous, you can donate a custom amount and receive awesome incentives for the highest tier you qualify for. Are you up for the challenge, insects? Want to head over to the donation event page at FinalBoss.tv. A handsome elemental.
So, thank you, the Fire Lord. Thank you for your assistance with that. What a charismatic guy, right? I am just... He's been a little bit of a pain in the butt. He's kind of a drama queen that he had to make a little version of himself because he was too embarrassed to actually be on the show. But what are you going to do? But if you guys want to go over there, and everything is live, and the donation drive only runs until January 1st. So you have the next 4 weeks, the next 4 shows, we'll be talking about it as well. And then all of the t-shirt raffles, the guaranteed t-shirts and the wristbands go out in January. So we thank you very much, guys, for everything, and help the Fire Lord get his magic back. so he can not be... It's kind of like Hades when his fire's out. It's not very nice. It looks really weird. So help him out. But to move on to the meat and potatoes of the show, I wanted to get a little mathy with you guys. Little mathy. And every episode we want to get into some little more theory and break down some of the... This topic came in. I can't even... So these next two ones are like the biggest like rumbling in the Holy Paladin community ever that I've seen. Because we've had multiple classes on beforehand. They've had some like, well, what about this? What about that? But the feedback on the question, that's why I said there's not a lot of Q&A in this episode, because we have all the questions that came in either boiled down to these two questions. So, haste versus mastery versus crit versus intellect for gemming and reforging. What do you guys do for these? What do you find works the best or is the best out of these stats? Because you can go either way on all four of these. So is there like a peak point that you go at before and then you switch to something after, or does it depend on the encounter, or 10 men versus 25? But Peach, I'll start with you. So haste, mastery, crit, or int for gemming or reforging. Which is the better pick of the bundle?
Everything but crit.
Crit?
Everything but crit.
Oh, everything
Everything but crit.
Gotcha. Perfect. And why is that?
Yeah. Well, so you're going to get a lot of intellect from gear already in mastering haste, but as far as like gemming and reforging, there are the haste breakpoints for Eternal Flame, which can be nice to go for. I also like a little bit of haste, just so you don't have really long cast times. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm running with like kind of like the second breakpoint for haste, and just so that you can just get from gear and reforging, you don't have to gem for it.
Sure.
And then between int and mastery, those are pretty similar. Right now I'm using the int mastery gems. Just to balance both of those out.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Henny, anything to add to? What do you guys think about that? What's a haste breakpoint? What are your haste breakpoints you guys look for?
I think Peach means 7170. That's the second one.
But what does it do? I mean, why is it a breakpoint?
Oh,
does it have to do with
it gives
hot
you another tick on your Eternal Flame.
Oh,
okay.
Which is always nice.
You said 7,170, right? 7170.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But I mean, for 25-man progress, like I personally like to go for ints because, like for the mastery, there's more of a chance on progress that your raid isn't going to be topped, so you don't really need that mastery to then buff their health more. You actually need to top people up, because I'd rather have the whole raid topped up than all the raid, like half health with, let's say, 100k shield each, just because it's just so much better to just keep people topped. And then I mean, if they die, there's nothing worse from the guild leader going through the death log and they're not even topped when they die, and just stuff like that. Yeah. It's just simpler if people are topped up. Then you can say, well, actually, at this point we might need an aura mastery, for example, or we might need to barrier here because this damage is insane, blah blah blah. So I like to run full int for that, and then once like progress is over, I would like to say that for like my setup that I have in my raid, which could be different for everyone, depending on how many disc priests you have, depending on what other classes you run with, I'd probably say mastery is better than int. But I mean, that just makes you look good on meters anyway. I mean, whether or not it's actually effective healing. Goal. Yeah, I mean, once farm's over really on 25-man, you're only ever going to outgear it. I mean, you've done it once. You might lose some cooldowns because different people come in and you might have a different setup to when you killed it. But I mean, if like you want to be somewhere near the top of the meters, I'd just go mastery, because then it just annoys all of the resto druids and all of the monks and all of the shamans.
Annoying the resto druids is a good goal. I like that.
Yeah.
I wonder though. I'm wondering in the back of my mind here if that's like an actual like you can do this to annoy the resto druids, or this is what we do in ScrubBusters to annoy our resto druids.
Yeah, I mean, it's how do you measure healing? No, I mean, mostly it's going to be meters.
Yeah.
I mean, what's to say that that sick heal you just did, like for 100k, and like top someone up or save them from dying?
Yeah.
What's to say that someone else wasn't going for that heal as well, and they just got full overheal? I mean, I think meters are one of the most misguided things for healers, but yeah, just for that, I'd rather just go int on progress, just to make your heals heal for more, basically.
Okay. So that kind of, are there any factors that determine that? Like, would anything actually, like, if you went for different talent choices, or if you were lower or higher eye level, does that affect anything? I know, like, for Enhancement Shaman, people always ask me, like, do I go haste now, or haste later, or do I go mastery now? And, like, that's, you can kind of go...
exactly that tone of voice.
In exactly that tone of voice. That's what you guys sound like when you send me whispers online. I'm just like, what do they sound like? As the voice. So, and that's always a question that I, like, last tier, you could go haste, but then now you can go mastery because our AoE is not terrible, so you can actually abuse it and do damage with it. But you could still go haste and you're still fine, right? There's no, like, do this, do that. But, so for you guys, is that as cut and dry for how you guys would do that? Would anything actually change that gearing mentality, or not really?
I mean, like what Peach said before, I mean, anything's good, really. I mean, I'd definitely go for a breakpoint. I wouldn't just stack haste, but that's just me personally. But I mean, crit, you might not even crit, so that stat could be completely worthless on like those 5 heals you needed it. So crit's probably not worth going. But I mean, yeah, any of the other two are pretty much fine.
Okay.
But on progress, if we're having trouble with a certain kind of fight, I might sort of, if it goes on for a couple of days sort of thing, the progress on it, I might the next day for the first sort of 5 to 10 tries try with, say, full mastery gems, or if I was mastery, then try with full int gems to see if it just makes any better. But I mean, mostly it's just int for me.
Okay.
See, I hear our healers talk about that kind of thing all the time, and in fact, our Holy Paladins seem to discuss it quite often, like how they're going to gear for a specific fight and whether they're going to switch up the stats that they're gearing, and that it just strikes me as something that's a little bit more interesting about playing a healing class, or perhaps playing a Holy Paladin class, than playing, I mean, my classes, it's quite straightforward how I'm going to gear and what I'm going to do. Do you find that interesting at all, that you can experiment with different gearing styles, or is it just kind of an annoyance?
Well, they've kind of made the choice for us by taking away the gems and the Reforged next tier.
I guess so.
Next expansion, so even if I did like it, I've got to kind of remove it from my mind anyway. But I guess it is a nice thing to do. I mean, for DPS, mostly it's like an exact math, because none of your numbers are wasted, because there's always going to be a boss with more health that you need to take away. But for like a healer, I mean, there's not a lot of point having an extra 20k on a heal if it's all going to go to overhealing. So it's a hard one, but then again, the meters come into it, where does that actually tell the true story of what's actually happened?
I'm also curious about how haste feels to you guys, because I know that it's one of those stats that has a very visceral impact on how you play. Like if you've got more haste, then obviously you're casting faster and you're just going to blow through spells faster. Do you find that there's a level where you don't want that much haste, or is it really just about the breakpoints and just how many hot ticks you're getting? I don't know how much hard casting you guys do.
Yeah. I know Peach had something about the haste caps, because I think if you hit one, do you not go for the next unless you can get there, or if you can't hit 1 or 2, do you just not go for them? Like, 'cause haste breakpoints aren't a thing for Anna and my one of those.
Yes. Well, there's like one at like 3,000 something haste, so you can pretty much always go for that one. I think even if your gear isn't that high. And then in between them, I wouldn't really go for something in between them unless like personally you feel your casting speed is just too slow, and you want that haste to cast a bit faster.
Okay.
And then I saw someone in the chat was asking about haste build. So I don't know if they mean full haste, just stacking haste everywhere you can get it, or just going for a higher breakpoint. After 7,000 haste, they start getting harder to get.
Of course.
Depending on your gear, because the Holy Paladin tier is all mastery, and so there's fewer haste pieces this tier to get.
Okay.
But if
They gave
you
him all
can
the
go,
props.
Yeah.
you can go like higher haste. You do start noticing the hit on your mana pool, because you have to start sacrificing spirit
Okay.
in your other stats. So you're casting faster and you have less regen. But it does work. Like we're on farm now, so it's fun to sometimes experiment with different stuff you want to on progression.
Yeah.
But as long as everyone else in your group is playing well and you have the gear, you can do pretty much any spec you want, and you can make it work even if it's not optimal.
Cool. Well, since you brought it up, let's talk about spirit a little bit, since I don't think you guys have gone into that yet. I'd love to hear what your opinion of spirit as a stat, how much you've been stacking, and whether it's changed a whole lot over the course of the expansion. I know that that's something that a lot of different healers feel differently about how spirit works.
I mean, personally, I don't. Yeah, personally, I don't gem for it.
Well, you said earlier that you've got a lot more mana regen cooldowns in a 25.
Yeah, that's right,
so
and plus, plus the trinket cooldowns sometimes, like more often than not, have a sort of spirit proc on it. So I mean that generally takes care of it. Just to touch on the haste thing as well, like if you have more haste, you're also blowing through your mana pool quicker.
Yep.
I mean, if there's any fight in the game that you need to be constantly casting Holy Radiance and you need it faster and faster and faster, then the other people in your raid are probably not doing something right, or you're not actually doing. I mean, someone takes damage, and say you want an extra 0.1 second to heal that person up, they're probably going to die anyway. If you could, do you know what I mean? It's not really a thing like I like to go for. It's just more of a breakpoint thing for the tick.
Gotcha.
Okay. Anything else on that, Peach? Are we good? Because the next topic is just as, if not more volatile than this one. So.
Yeah, I think that with spirit, it should just be a little bit more consistent between the different healing classes.
Yeah.
Like right now, it's really different. Like different healing classes need really different levels of spirit, and I think that's one of the things they're working on going into Warlords, just making it more consistent, since we aren't gonna have spirit on most of our gear.
Right.
So you're not going, like, you can't have like a monk right now that's reforging out of spirit, not having any spirit at all, and then like a holy priest or a paladin who wants a fair amount of spirit. Like in the new system, you wouldn't be able to have that much of a difference.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know that they're also going to work on making spirit, I guess, I hate to use this word, but scale better. There's a really big difference between how much spirit you need when you're in blues and when you're in the last tier of the expansion's gear. And it's enormous. It's ridiculous. And I know it was on GC's Twitter. He was talking a little bit about it the other day. I feel like that's something that they're going to want to work on, is just trying to find a way to deal with that for the next expansion, and perhaps make it feel a little bit better at the beginning of the expansion and at the end. So.
Yeah, because at the beginning, when you're in blues and early purples, you're like, give me all the spirit. And at the end, like, get out of my gear.
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't do anything for you. Yeah.
But the point about how different healers need different amounts of spirit is pretty good. That's something that I hadn't really noticed, but of course, I guess it's true. So.
Yep.
And it affects which gear each healer wants, and I suppose which trinket each healer wants. So.
It's true. That is true. So.
It's kind of strange they keep increasing it on gear as well as an expansion progresses, because if you can heal for 10 to 12 minutes constantly without going mana in the first tier, why do you need more spirit going into the last tier?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
true.
yeah.
That is kind of silly.
Because eye level upgrades just go up, but then the spirit keeps going up, so you just get more and more.
Then you just reforge out of it in the end. Yeah.
Yep. So
it seems like a problematic stat, but I guess we'll see where it goes in Warlords.
Yeah, it's gonna be almost. I feel like it's gonna be sort of coveted because it's only on certain pieces now going into Warlords. At least the way it looks right now. So it's almost gonna be like you need to have that on those pieces, and when you upgrade it, you'll actually see an impact, versus having it on your entire gear set, and it's just blanketed, and you can't really control it because of reforging and gemming changes, so we'll see. If they make it very desirable, that's the word I was going to use, desirable. It's a good word. If
it is desirable and they remove like a lot of the gem sockets, which I thought they were going to do.
Yep.
If there's still spirit gems in the game, that's kind of silly because healers are going to have to do that because it's such a low amount you're going to have on your gear.
Yep.
Then you kind of have to gem it. If you can get more, you should. And so yeah, I'm not sure what they're going to do with that.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, moving right along to another sort of hot button topic, I'm going to ask you guys about one of the talent tiers that I rather like. Again, that works very differently for my specs than it does for yours. Let's talk about Selfless Healer versus Eternal Flame versus Sacred Shield. I know that this has changed a little bit over the course of the expansion and that Eternal Flame has been a hot button topic for the Paladin community. But right now, which one are you using, and how do you feel about the changes that have happened to Eternal Flame?
Let's go with Peach first for 10-man.
Go with Peach first for 10-man.
Yeah, 10-man version of this.
Right now, I'm using Eternal Flame. I really like Sacred Shield, but it's not that good, and it has no synergy with any of our other abilities. Like you don't get Mastery, you don't get Holy Power, it doesn't do anything to Beacon of Light. So even though it's like a nice idea, it doesn't work in practice. Yeah. So that leaves me with Eternal Flame. And I know some people like using Selfless Healer, mostly on like Thock and sometimes Nourishing. I tried it a few times. I'm just not a fan of that style of like doing something now so that you can do more healing later.
Okay.
And with Eternal Flame, you also get more transfer to Beacon of Light, which helps like with the tank healing and stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that seems pretty definitive because I know at least because Anna, you probably use Sacred Shield more often right now.
In Ret.
In Ret, yes.
No. I use Selfless Healer.
Selfless.
That instant flash of light is like ridiculous. It's like ridiculously awesome. Like I don't use a whole lot of them in terms of rating. I don't use a whole lot of them anyway. Although the Selfless Healer thing has definitely saved my bacon like a number of times. Like if we're all almost dead and I'm just trying to get that like instant flash of light. It's just one GCD and it heals for just a crap ton. And it's really nice. And just for like fooling around and just like playing my Paladin outside of raids, Selfless Healer is 100% the most convenient thing. Okay. In tank spec, I think a lot more tanks are using Eternal Flame right now. It was definitely like seriously OP before they nerfed it a bit, and now it's pretty much even with Sacred Shield. If I was main spec tank, I'd be using Eternal Flame. I'm not, and I'm very lazy, so I'm using Sacred Shield still. I mean, I'm just gonna throw that out there. Like Sacred Shield is the easy option, and I'm gonna admit very much that I'm using Sacred Shield in my off spec. But Eternal Flame is probably the better option. It's pretty nice for tanks. So.
Well, that's what I was curious about because in the current like don't take damage absorb meta, I thought like for me, I take the Stolen Bulwark Totem, which is basically Sacred Shield on a 1-minute cooldown, versus my small shield wall. Because like taking the damage and mitigating it is, I think not taking it is a lot better. So I use the shield more. That's what I was curious about. If you took,
is it a GCD for you?
It's a GCD, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's a GCD for me too. And for a long time I ran Sacred Shield because Ret does have empty spaces in our rotation, and I would just refresh Sacred Shield whenever I had an empty spot in my rotation. But that's kind of constant damage mitigation, and with a 20-second Divine Protection cooldown with my trinket, like that's a 10-second defensive cooldown on a 20-second cooldown. It's a little bit ridiculous. Yeah. And so I've decided that I really value that instant flash of light from Selfless Healer, and I just really got used to it. It's on a mouse bind. I really got used to using it. I use it. It's better than a Healthstone, honestly. Even though Healthstone's not on the GCD, it's just it's a huge heal for me as a DPS class, and the fact that it then makes my next, it can just make my flash of light faster. It's just a very convenient talent for me. So, I like that talent here, though. I like that I've kind of switched it up, and I've tried all three of them, and I consider I consider their strengths and weaknesses in very different ways depending on the spec that I am. I like that tier of talents a lot for Paladins. It's one of the things that makes me think archery is pretty good right now.
Yeah. And then I think Henny has talked about it multiple times in the show, but for 25-man Holy Paladin stuff, what are your thoughts on those 3 spells?
Yeah, Eternal Flame is king. Yeah. I mean, I've already said that the other finisher is terrible, so we've got to at least have one choice, right? I mean, yeah. Also just be Holy Radiance all the time. Like Sacred Shields, I guess is okay. But it's like one target, so yeah.
I guess
it's not great.
That brings me back up around to the fact that Selfless Healer and Sacred Shield aren't finishers, but Eternal Flame modifies a finisher.
Yeah, it makes no sense as a tier whatsoever.
Shouldn't that tier all be modifiers on or adding things to your finishers? Wouldn't that make more sense?
Yeah, it would make a lot more sense.
Selfless Healer does modify a spell.
That's what I'm saying, though, but it's not a...
Sacred Shield gives you an extra spell, Eternal Flame changes a spell, and Selfless Healer changes how a spell works.
But for the fact of like the argument with Holy Power, and you need to have a reason to use it, Eternal Flame seems like it's really way too strong because it actually amplifies one of your finishers, which is kind of your whole archetype to your 2 resources. So that's what I'm wondering. Why doesn't that tier have all 3? Why doesn't it work with Holy Power on the whole tier? Huh.
Well, I think a problem with that tier is they didn't like when they designed it, they didn't like come in thinking of each talent working with each tree.
True.
It was kind of like Death Knight talents where like you have one for Ret, one for Holy, and one for Prot, and they just stuck them all together.
Yeah. I mean, my impression of the way that tier works is the way that it works for a healer is probably similar to the way that I feel like the DPS increasing talents work for me, where there is a right answer. And that's just the way that it's going to work. If you're a healing paladin and you've got a tier of healing related talents, there will be a right answer for you. And I am completely unsurprised to hear like, oh, well, the other options suck. This is the only option. Like that strikes me as very straightforward. But for me, in my specs, that's a utility tier. That's not a right answer tier. True. So, and I think that that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, it doesn't matter whether you're going to have those spells modify other spells or whether they're going to give you an extra button. Although, to be honest, I think that you're probably right that either they should all provide extra buttons or they should all modify existing spells. Yeah. At least that's the way I see it. But because we have one set of talents for 3 different roles, DPS, tank, healer, there are going to be tiers where there's a right answer for some specs and where that tier is a utility tier for others. And I think that tier succeeds because it is a utility tier for both Ret and Prot. And if there's a right answer for Holy, that's just the way it's going to be. The way that the 6th tier works for me as Ret, I mean, there is a right answer. I find that tier very boring. But I know that tier, tier 6, with Execution Sentence and Light's Hammer and Holy Prism, that is an interesting choice for you guys, right? Or am I totally misunderstanding it? And is there a right answer choice for you in that tier?
Yeah.
Yeah, that depends on the fight, really. If there's a lot of stacking up or a lot of AoE damage where you can, this for a 25-man especially, where you're going to have more than 1 or 2 melee. If there's going to be like heavy damage, it's probably worth taking Light's Hammer, just because you can throw it down on the melee or the entire raid if they're all stacked up. For more sort of sporadic damage, like spread over the whole raid, I'd probably take Holy Prism, but yeah.
And I hear my paladins talk about that stuff like, oh, using Holy Prism defensively or Light's Hammer, I think, is a very cool paladin spell, and it really makes me kind of sad that I don't ever use it. It's rather like what I said earlier about Shield of Righteousness. There aren't a whole lot of times where the right decision is to spec out of Execution Sentence. And so for me, that tier is very disappointing because I'm always in Execution Sentence, and I really wish that I could use the other options. But I know that for my Holy Paladins, that tier is an interesting choice because they do use Execution Sentence sometimes and Light's Hammer sometimes and Holy Prism sometimes. And that's just the way that different tiers are going to work when you have a class that has 3 different roles for 3 different specs.
And I think it comes down to almost a designer thing with this class being, it's obviously the first time we've been dealing with these types of talents in this way with I guess all the different systems they've worked out, and all the math they've figured out, and all the background stuff, and all the analytics they've gathered, that they'll have a lot better handle on these going into 6.0. Like, I've been preaching this for weeks and weeks and weeks, episodes and episodes and episodes, that they've learned so much from MOP that 6.0 is going to be a lot better, because these are kind of things that I wonder about, because their whole main goal of the new talent system was that you could pick and choose ones based on encounters or personal feel, not having like a guaranteed answer, because that like defeats the whole purpose of the new trees. So I know that some trees have them and some classes have them, but that goes against their whole design philosophy. So we'll have to see if that changes in 6.0, because having a no-brainer pick is no different than having a cookie cutter spec back in the day. You know, well, I put my talents in these things, and then that's it. So,
well, I think as long as I think you have to accept the fact that there are going to be some no-brainer picks, and as long as all of them aren't no-brainer picks, then I feel like there is some success.
Yeah, but if you're only moving around like your movement talent, that's like all I do. Like it still feels weird. Like I rarely move anything, and maybe just because Enhancement Shaman is just so ridiculous. We have 27 sources of damage right now.
The Paladin tree is frankly just better than the Shaman tree.
No, I look at it and it's so
they
cool.
are my two favorite classes, and so I've compared them, and I have one of my best friends is a Shaman, and I'm just like, I'm sorry, our talents are just better than yours. No, I have a very good opinion of the Paladin talent tree.
They're cool. They're all like really iconic to that degree, at least your final ones. So I get a bigger fire elemental.
I wish you had no fire elemental, honestly.
I know, you hate those things.
Anyway,
those things. Yes.
I'm sorry. Anna rant got us off.
This is a good segue into damage. All your other healers in this game, because you could have smite priests, right? You can fist weave. You can moonfire if you're a rested druid. That's fine. Wrath, I think, right? That gets empowered, or we used to. I don't know. What do Holy Paladins? We want to put this in the show. You guys don't really have any options to actually do any additional damage. You have like denounce, I guess, and you can judge. But is that actually is it worth it? Does it really do anything for you versus the other classes that can kind of DPS while they heal? I know it might matter more for 10-man, so I'll go with Henny first, then go with Peach after, but what do you think about like your options for Holy Paladin DPS, or non-existent version of it, Henny?
I wouldn't really call it a DPS, but one thing, I don't really do it for the DPS is what I guess I meant to say. Yeah. It's more to gain more holy power by using Crusader Strike if I can. If I'm in melee range, then I'll use it just to gain more holy power, to do more healing, basically. But I don't feel like the class is missing anything by not being able to smite or anything like that. That's sort of like a priest thing. But then you kind of have to make the choice, okay, do I cast this heal or do I cast this DPS spell that's going to do some healing? And what's going to be better? Is it going to be better if I just target this person and heal them up, or is it better if I do some damage and heal them? I mean, yeah. I think it should only belong on some classes and not all of them, because it just overcomplicates things.
I don't mean you should have it. I just think that other classes definitely have options for having the chance to do damage as a healer. But Paladins have like you can judge and you can like auto attack and Crusader Strike, but that really doesn't do. And then I guess people were talking about in chat earlier today how they do 5-mans as a Holy Paladin. You just spam. Is it denounce, right? That's your
denounce,
range. Denounce, yeah. But all it does is do damage, right? Does it give you holy power or anything?
No.
No, it just does damage.
It's just a flat damage.
Interesting. Because like you can smite priest. I know that's their archetype with atonement, but it almost kind of feels like you're both using the same resource. You're both blessed by the light or whatever. You both got your gift from, and Noble can confirm, right? It's the same light, right, Noble? Right? That Naru glowy goodness. So, yeah, it just feels like it might be I mean, it's a new spell. It looks cool, but. How about for 10-mans, though, Peach? Does that really affect you guys a little more? I know we talked about it before in the...
So, I think it's part of how much DPS, this priest does, and how much DPS Mistweaver Monk can burst up to with Shaman, and like Crackling Jade Lightning with Int Potion at the start of a fight. As a Holy Paladin, Judgment doesn't really do very much damage. It doesn't scale that well with Holy spell power. You can like Holy Shock something for a bit of damage, then you're losing out on the healing and denounce. like the only fights where it was like I felt like the damage I did like at the start of the fight really mattered was on Siege Crafter.
Siegecrafter.
Because it was a very tight fight and like nothing's really happening at the start, so you can spam denounce.
Okay.
And then at the end, when it's almost a wipe and there's like 200k health left, and he dies, you can feel like okay, the like 2-3 million damage I did at the start of the fight actually mattered.
Oh, okay.
But like, if you're a disc priest, you're able to do 70k healing or DPS throughout the whole fight without sacrificing anything, and I think that is a problem, and it's going to be a bigger problem in Mythic rating when you only have the 3 healers and like a certain DPS check that has to be made. It's just going to be easier to go with healers that can do a reasonable amount of DPS, whatever that is in Mythic, while doing the amount of healing that's required just to make that DPS check.
Okay. Because I know we talked about a little bit before that you said like the best healing comp for like a Tema right now is like Mistweaver Disc Priest because they could just DPS and still heal people, right? Is that?
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's not so much like the fist weaving stuff for Mistweaver there, but you have like your Tiger that does a lot of damage, and like your Crackling J Lightning does a lot of damage too.
Okay. Dang. And that's just hard to deal with too, because if you are like if you're a druid then or a paladin, then you really don't have a ton of options to commit to that to help with that. I know like druids can go Heart of the Wild and go kind of crazy kitty cat form, but yeah, that's interesting how that works out for you guys. But then, anything else for you, Henny, about that? Were we good?
I guess that matters more in 10-man, whether they can DPS or not. I mean, in 25-man, you've seen it on Ragnaros and stuff. They just drop healers if they need more DPS.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
The solution is rarely to bring a healer who can DPS well.
Yeah. I mean, you can't really drop from like 2 healers to 1 healer or 1 healer to 0 healers on a fight because you need more DPS in 10-man.
Yeah.
I mean, it's obviously not going to work, so.
Yep.
Well, just moving right along since we're running short on time here, and I have a question that I really wanted to ask you guys. Since you heal as part of a team with other classes, and those other classes have strengths and weaknesses and have been good or bad as the tiers have progressed, what do you feel about how Holy Paladins stack up against the other healers on your team? Do you feel like you're well placed to bring something to the raid that the other classes don't? Or do you feel as though you are perhaps, not the best choice and you wish that certain things about Paladins work differently? So I'm going to fire this off at Peach first, since you're a part of a 10-man. And it's very complicated which healers you're going to pick for a 10-man.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've only, like this tier, I've only healed really with a Disc Priest and a Resto Shaman. We had a monk for like 1 day, and then he disappeared.
Hanging on to monk healers is hard, man.
Yeah. Like on progression, I think definitely healing with the disc is nice, but sometimes you just have you get into a problem where everyone's low, and it's just kind of hard to top people off. So having a Resto Druid or having a Resto Druid there is really nice, just to get people healed up to full again.
Yeah. Okay.
But overall, yeah, I think healing with a Disc Priest is pretty nice.
Okay, well that's.
But if we're talking about like farm though, then yeah, like a Resto Shaman is good. You get the mana gain, and they don't have absorbs to steal your healing.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, because I know Resto Shamans are really important in 10, I mean, in 25 even more so. But then it's funny to see healing with a Disc Priest is fun because they do all the work. I think that's like the hidden message there.
Well, not necessarily. Like sometimes if like Spirit Shell is up, then yeah, there's not that much needs to be done right then.
Sure.
But they're just a really good class in 10-mans, and like having the bit of absorbs from the Paladin and the absorbs from the Disc Priest, it keeps everyone pretty safe.
Okay. And then Henny, what about you?
Depends on how good you want to look on the meters, really.
The meters.
Let's talk about keeping people alive.
Yes, let's
keeping people alive.
Yes.
Depends on the fight. Theck, for example, I'd rather have everyone topped up than them all to have shields, because that damage comes in, every like 1.5 seconds or something silly.
Although you do need X Devo auras for that fight.
You
right?
do.
I mean, I don't know how you guys did it, but that's how we did it.
Yeah, but so you can continue casting 3. You mean, yeah?
Yeah. Well, we use 3. We never want to go below like 3 paladins in our raid. Of course, we only have 3 paladins.
We did it with 1.
Did you really?
Look, you can't see my face right now, but yeah, I think we did it with 1. Because
I was gone 1 week, and they were like, "Anna, we missed you."
We don't have ret paladins, and I'm not sure. Maybe it was 2. Maybe it was only 2. But oof.
Sorry. Anyway, keep going.
Keep going.
That was awful.
Memories. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes for at least farm, we run with like 2 disc priests on most fights, so it is kind of handy. It sort of smooths out all the damage, but once you know the fight, there isn't as much damage as there was in progress, so it's not really necessary to have like many resto druids or anything like that. We just pretty much take like who needs what from a fight now. It's gone beyond the point. Like, obviously you need like a base amount of cooldowns to get through it, but AM is like such a good cooldown for like stopping the interrupt, and a lot of the damage is elemental damage as well, so it really helps.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that pretty definitively just affirms Affinity's stance on disc priests and just remove them from the game so other healers can have fun. I like how they both mention them. I know. I mean, it is
GC confirmed that he played a holy priest, so I guess we know why discs are interesting. I'm completely kidding.
I know.
I'm not somebody who thinks that devs buff or nerf classes based on what they play, but that's the joke.
Yep.
That's the joke, is that he plays a holy priest, and it explains so much. But
that's pretty good. It's pretty funny. But I want to give you guys a little bit of time. We touched on a lot of our other big topics here during the main show. We do have some questions to answer, and we always have a little more time with you guys in the chat room personally in the after show. Stick around for that. But I want to give you guys a little bit of, do you have any closing remarks for your Holy Paladins? Like some secrets, tips, tricks, lesser known facts, some insider info, what you can do to, apparently Hennyox is a god among Holy Paladins to his, no?
That's why we've got these guys on the show.
Yep. So what do you guys have for your guys' community? What can you impart upon them with your knowledge? Tips, please. Yeah. Henny first or Peach? Henny first.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, once you know the fight, it's quite straightforward to like maximize when you're going to use your cooldowns, because that's all that's going to separate you from other Holy Paladins is when you use your cooldowns, as long as you're both sort of equal. And once you sort of know that, then it's quite easy to do the fight.
Sure.
And ignore as many mechanics in a fight as possible if you can. If you can get away with it with using your bubble and bop. I know that stops. What is it called? Calculate on paragons.
Yep.
If you bop yourself, then you don't even have to like run away and spread out and stuff. Yep. So you can just heal.
But what if you're
Paragons is the best paladin cheating fight.
Yeah.
You can bubble through rapid fire. You can bop out of whirling. I mean, it's great. That is just like the core of being a paladin. Every paladin of every spec should figure out how to use their cheaty abilities to cheat mechanics on fights, because that's how you do it.
Yeah, I'm probably going to get myself in trouble here, but it's like I don't even buff other people that get caught by whirling, because you shouldn't have been caught by it, and
there you go.
I just say that I'm out of range or whatever.
I like that attitude.
Just so I can use it on the calculate, basically.
Yep. That's a good point, though. It's definitely utilizing your kits to be OP, basically. Because I know we use bops because we only have like 1 or 2 in the raid ever on like Trank Druids for stuff like that. But if you have the other ones and you can use them yourself, then definitely. I understand where that comes from, sure. And Peach, what about you from a 10-man perspective? Are you there? There we go.
Pretty much the same thing.
I think... Oh, are you still there? I think we're losing
pretty much the same.
He said pretty much the same thing.
Same thing. No, I heard him, but I didn't know. Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah. like one thing that kind of comes up sometimes is like stacking your cooldowns or spreading them out.
Okay.
Because they do kind of work well together. Especially like divine. Sorry, not divine purpose. Well, the holy power one, I forget what it's called now.
Oh,
Holy Avenger.
Avenger,
Yeah, Holy Avenger, yeah. Using Holy Avenger with the Guardian of the Kings, and then Light of Dawn can, on some fights works pretty well, kind of like a Trink or a Healing Tide does, because you get that spread out healing aspect.
Okay. I didn't think about that, yeah. So do you suggest certain ones line up better, or should you always save them to be individualized?
It depends on the fight, really.
Sure, okay.
Because on some fights, like there's specific areas where there's actually damage and you can use the cooldowns. Sometimes it works out nicely to like use 2 of them at once, and then the next time you use the other 2, and then the third time that situation comes up, the first 2 should, or at least one of them will be off cooldown again.
Okay.
And then on other times, like on Paragons again, like when we the way we do it in 10-man, when the high sec, the Swarmkeeper is up with his multi shots, there's a lot of raid damage going up.
Yes.
On the raid, and so I like kind of chaining the cooldowns instead of stacking them, so you have a cooldown up for a lot of the time while he's up, just to help get people up.
Okay. So that's almost a weaving.
It's interesting to hear how you use your cooldowns in different ways depending on the needs of the fight. Would you say that's something that's very important for a healer to look at whenever you're going into a new fight, is when you're going to use your cooldowns and how you're going to use them?
Yes, because otherwise you get into the problem where you keep saving your cooldowns for the right spot to use them, and then like every time something happens, you have to think like, is this the right spot to use the cooldown? Like no. Save it.
Okay.
That's such a tank problem too. Yeah.
At the end of the fight, you still have all your cooldowns and you haven't used them yet.
The raid wipes and you haven't used your cooldowns, and then you're like, well, that was the wrong call. I mean, that's exactly the way that a tank looks at it too. Is you can't just save your cooldowns until the right time, and then the right time never comes up. You have to be aggressive.
Yeah, and it's different with DPS because you just basically use them on cooldown outside of lining up for like certain burst phases or like different little iterations. But for healing, you can just like sit on them the whole fight and never use them. And like what happens when do I use these? So yeah, I guess it's a good point is to know.
I bet that's what a lot of healers do.
Yeah,
I know that's what a lot of tanks do who are less experienced at doing difficult content. Is they just sit on they don't use their cooldowns.
They don't be proactive enough, but you can really save a lot of HP bars and stress on other people, because it all works together. If tanks take less damage, healers have to work less, they can worry on the raid, and the raid has less damage, they can focus on the tanks. We're all one big happy family here. So, I think that sums it up pretty well.
Yeah, thanks guys. That was really interesting. I'm glad that we got to the tips and tricks that you'd like to share with your adoring fans.
I'm hitting the button. All right. So,
it's that time.
It is that time. Holy Paladins today. Awesome show. Very, very fun. We have more to talk about in the after show. Stick around. We're moving the Q&A to that because we didn't have enough time.
Yep.
So, again, thank you guys very much for being here. We're live every Sunday. Every Sunday at 1 PST, 4 EST, 10 CET right here on the Twitch. And you can also watch us on the FinalBoss.tv. Joining us, Henny from ScrubBusters EU. Thank you very much, sir.
No problem.
Yep, you're keeping the hair for the after show, right? Yep.
Or should I just go shave it all off now?
No, I mean, possibly. Uh-oh. Problem with the call. I think we lost. Oh, no. We lost our friend. Well, we'll go to... He had... Okay, he's coming back. All right. Annafiel, of course, you go follow her on the Twitter at Annafiel.
Twitter.com/Annafiel. It's not very complicated. There I am.
Yep, there you are.
Although... Please don't expect me to always tweet about WoW, because that's not actually what I tweet about most
Correct.
of the time.
Uh-oh.
So, mostly just random stuff.
The screen region's messed up. We gotta wait for our friend to come back. I will give him...
Oh no! Do I move my head over this way?
No, you can't. I have to move back to me. It moves the whole thing. It's terrible. I'm over at twitch.tv, Bay TLM. TLM, that's where you'll find me. I stream all of our raids and other random gaming stuff when I'm not doing this. So... the music's still going. We got plenty of time here. I guess I can plug Divinix real quick. Over at SoundCloud, let's bring this up. I wasn't prepared because I was going to do this in the after show.
Oh, our new music.
Yeah, it's playing right now. Yep. But
well, I can't hear it because I am on the
Skype.
Skype.
Hear it. Yeah. It's going to be in the there's going to be a link to it eventually. But that's the guy doing all our music. The music you'll hear on the show is actually going to be completely exclusive unless he comes out with an album that supports it. So we've got music going to run now and throughout the entire after show. And, oh, here we go. Welcome back, friend. Are you back? Oh, I heard him. Oh, that's not Henny. There's Peach. All right. PeachBlossom over there from the best 10-man in North America. Nightmare. Oh, what am I doing? Nightmare Asylum. Thank you very much for being on the show tonight, sir.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Sorry about that little disconnect there. It's okay. That's all right. Well, we'll be back for a little after show here in a bit. We're taking a little bit of a break, and we'll see you all in a minute.
Yes, everyone stick around. Everyone stick around. We'll have lots of questions and answers and hang out for a while with chat. And I appreciate everyone coming to watch the show tonight.
Yep. But then we'll see you all next Sunday for... It was going to be Elemental Shamans, but some situations happened. It's going to most likely be, and again, Twitter and Facebook updates you in on this, Boomkins. And I'm 98.173, repeating of course, % sure that Zoomkins from Blood Legion will be here, +1. So,
+1. We'll
see you next week for Moonkins. And for everyone else here, and everyone behind the scenes of the Final Boss TV crew, thank you very much for watching, and have a great one. Bye, guys.